So, over the last 3 years, everybody knows this to be a sports podcast. And it is. It will always be a sports podcast. It will always be a platform for myself and the guests that have joined me on the show. Over 50 guests that have joined me on the show the last, 2.5 years. It'll be a platform for them as well. And there's been times where I've thought maybe I should talk about more things that are more uplifting outside of sports. Talk about topics that are very pivotal in our society today. One of those topics being suicide and suicide prevention, most importantly. And over the last, I'd say, 4 years, August 14th, 2014, my eyes were vastly opened. I believe that was the date. If I got it wrong, I apologize. But I believe that was the date that the greatest comedian, one of the greatest actors, one of the most talented men in Hollywood passed away. August 11th, actually, 2014. When I had first heard that Robin Williams had passed away, I was in complete shock, most like everyone, like Hollywood, like his fans. We were all shocked that a man that brought so much joy to the masses over a 35-year, almost 40-year career at that point, had this quote-unquote depression, and we only knew so much then compared to what we know now. On the surface, it appeared as if Robin Williams had, just taken his own life and was depressed and would go down in the history books as someone that just couldn't overcome his demons. And part of that is true. But when I had first heard that HBO was doing a documentary on Robin Williams and his life and his career and his legacy as a comedian and as an actor, I knew I was going to watch it because this guy was just such a larger-than-life figure, a larger-than-life caricature on stage, off stage, and on screen that he became somebody that throughout my childhood I heavily admired. He was almost the uncle on TV because he provided me with a lot of funny moments, and still to this day, one of my favorite movies is Mrs. Doubtfire. I've watched that movie probably 40, 50, 60, 70, over 100 times. And I've quoted lines from it on this particular podcast. And just with friends and stuff like that, I always quote lines from that movie. There were so many others. Jumanji was one that I really enjoyed as a kid. Hook was another one that I enjoyed as a kid. And when I had first heard that he had passed, I thought, not this guy. It was different. It was very different. It was a real tough pill to swallow because he was such a sentimental, sensitive, kind, caring person that radiated in his roles, and Jack and Patch Adams, and a very sincere man. Without even knowing him, I think his fans could say that, he was probably one of the nicest guys to find success in Hollywood. He was always caring for his fans. He always reached out to his fans. He did USO tours, and treated everybody with equal respect. And was just a true professional in terms of his comedy career, in terms of his acting career. And the documentary, for those that haven't watched it, it premiered last night, and it has over 1 million views already. 1 million views, on premiere night. HBO really hit one out of the park with this documentary. And it was one that painted Robin Williams' life in such a unique, transcendent perspective that it was very emotional to watch. Very emotional to watch. Because here was somebody that had such a unique, God-given gift to perform, not just make people laugh. That everybody has the ability to make people laugh, whether we want to admit it or not. But the ability to perform, the ability to be out in front of a crowd and really be able to rehearse the lines and know them without even looking at the sheet. And that's what Robin Williams was able to do. He was able to act out his comedy, which led to his Academy Award-winning acting career. One of the best parts of the documentary was one in which he's live at the Metropolitan. There's about 2,500 people there, and he had written the jokes, written the set, so to speak, and his agent said only 25% of it was what they rehearsed, and this guy went on stage during a whole act for over 2 hours, and only 25% of it was, actually he said 25% of it wasn't what they rehearsed. So he was a very inventive, instinctual, comedic genius that paved the way for plenty of other comics throughout the years to have had the successful careers that they have had. Robin Williams paved the way for a lot of comedians to have the jobs that they have. Guys like Jerry Seinfeld and many more. Guys like Conan and many more in that era. And even today, I know that there's comedians today that are younger that, people at SNL that Robin Williams is the greatest comedian ever. I mean, I don't think there's a close first to him. I don't think there's a 1B. I would say 1A is him, and then everybody else is kind of looking up. Eddie Murphy is up there as well. But in terms of his comedy style, his energy, his ability to be live, his ability to be alive while being live on stage was just truly fascinating. And the documentary went into great detail about his work ethic, his energy to do one movie, then a tour, then a movie, just constantly working to the point where as he grew older, he just became completely exhausted and didn't really know who he was anymore. And that's a trap that many, many actors and actresses and musicians have fallen into. You become so in touch with your personality on the screen or on the stage that you lose touch with the reality of who you really are. And I think that is, to an extent, what happened to Robin Williams. That was alluded to in the documentary. Another fact that was alluded to in the documentary was the fact that he suffered from Lewy body disease and Parkinson's, to where literally, scientifically, the biology stated that his brain was telling his body to do things that he wasn't telling his body to do. His brain was literally deceiving itself, tricking itself. And that is the saddest part of this whole story, is that ultimately he did take his own life. He did commit suicide. But we'll never know, was it really him? Was it this disease? And we don't really need to know. And that's something that I've heard people say, well, was it really him, or was it the dementia? Was it the Parkinson's? Was it maybe he just wanted to go out on his own terms? I don't like speculating suicide. I think that it is what it is. The person took that path, and that's the path that person decided to take. And we should honor and respect that, despite the fact that it is very, very sad and troubling to a degree that a man that prestigious, a man that famous, a man that revered in his industry would go to that length. But that just shows us all and proves to us all one thing, is that we are all human. None of us are bulletproof. We all have, and I hate to sound corny in saying this, but we all have feelings. And I can speak for myself and say that there's times where I've said things in terms of sport where people have disagreed. There's times where I've said things in sport where people disagree, but they have to really be, I don't want to say violent, but violent with their words. And I see a lot of that on Twitter, not towards me, but just towards everybody, amongst everybody. We have to do a much better job at picking our words. And just because we have a tweet button or a post button or an Instagram or Snapchat or whatever it may be, as far as a social media platform, we as a society have to learn from situations like this, because when a man, as I've said before, that prestigious, that noteworthy, that honorable, is under those circumstances where he felt as if he wasn't worthy, that's very real. It's very real. His career with Mork and Mindy and the story behind that of how Gary Marshall's son was a huge Star Wars fan. Gary Marshall wanted his son to watch Happy Days. The son did not want to watch it. He said there's no aliens on it. And then they put Mork on Happy Days as Robin Williams as Mork. And he was such a huge hit that they did Mork and Mindy. Then for Mork and Mindy, he was one of the first actors of his generation, or comedic actors, sitcom actors, television actors, to transition fully to being the number one box office draw for a stretch there. And I mean, putting together massive, massive movie hits like Mrs. Doubtfire, like Jumanji, like Hook, and others along the way. Patch Adams was a movie that I watched recently. And that one struck a chord with me because Dead Poets Society was another, Good Will Hunting, but back to Patch Adams there, those two just popped in my head, where he's a doctor that feels that laughter is the best medicine. And he really became his roles. He made it as if you could believe it. I could believe that Robin Williams could be Dr. Robin Williams, and he would go to hospitals, visit sick kids, and believe that laughter is the best medicine. It wasn't really a far stretch. He was a very happy, light-hearted, kind person that over time became something that nobody would have thought to have expected. Nobody expected back in 2014 to have happen what eventually happened. And he's a great loss to the Hollywood community. I think that his loss is still very prevalent in today's society. He made the world a better place. He made Hollywood a better place. He made comedy better. He made acting better. He made the world a better place when you have somebody that is so just larger than life. And the actors and actresses that were in this documentary, some of the biggest names, Billy Crystal, who was a dear friend of his, went into his marriages. His son, Zach Williams, was in the documentary, and he looks just like his dad. That was really sad, seeing his son. And I want to talk about this, and I'm not really used to talking about sad topics like this, but I wanted to talk about this tonight because it really transcended in me. It made me feel like it was a topic worth talking about. And I feel like it's a topic that is not talked about enough. Greatest comedian ever, no doubt about that, and somebody that I miss dearly. As a fan, I never met the man, but I miss his work dearly. I'm an avid watcher and viewer of his movies. We miss you, Robin. Robin Williams, Come Inside My Mind, HBO. Tune in, watch it. Take care.